How high should you be able to play based on your age, the grade that you're in, or maybe even how many years you've been playing the horn? That will be the discussion today in our trumpet lesson. And it's very interesting. Over the years, I get lots of comments that kind of go like this. Hey, I'm in 10th grade and I can play a high C. Is that good? Or what's another one? I just started playing trumpet and I'm able to get an E at the top of the staff. Is that any good? So that's the way that people tend to ask the question. And they say, is that good? So I always get a kick out of that. So we're going to have a discussion today, and these are going to be ballpark averages, mainly based on my observation over quite a long time of teaching and playing, and even myself, and I'll give you some exceptions. So the first exception to what I'm going to be talking about would be my own son. If you search my channel, you'll notice that I'm sitting out on the balcony in my San Francisco apartment, and I'm testing out a new horn. It's actually not a new horn. It's a whatever it was. It was a vintage horn. But I'm playing outside the fire escape, and you hear, if you listen carefully, you'll hear some in the background that's kind of helping me out with the filming, and that was my son. That particular year, 2012, he turned 10, and I got him excited about getting into band, and I've got him a horn and everything, and I gave him a couple of lessons. The first time he picked up the horn, he messed around with it, and he was able to go up to an E. Now, it wasn't the best quality E, but it wasn't a squeak. I mean, it had some meat on the bone. I was shocked. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. I had him start off on a G. This note. G or are two perfect notes for any beginner that has never touched the horn. So he played that so easily, I said, well, can you go a little higher? And he kept going up until finally he got to the E, and he was really turning red and pressing it hard. But it came out kind of loud. I just shook my head. I thought, that's incredible. Unfortunately, now my son seemed to have some natural talent, maybe even more than me, but he didn't dig the horn. So I think his 5th grade year, he played through one semester of band and music class, and then ditched it. That was pretty much it. At that time, he was really into baseball. And what else? He got on football a little bit, so he was more into athletics. But he just had the natural ability that I didn't have. To put that in perspective, I didn't have that strong of a high E until maybe midway of my junior year in high school. Can you believe it? I'm not joking. I mean, that was a strong high E he played. And I was about 16 and a half years old before I had an E that would come out that good. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. I'm going to talk kids for right now, not beginning adults. But maybe you're in 4th grade, 5th grade, 6th grade. Maybe you're a late bloomer and you're in 7th grade. And you're probably between the ages of 9, maybe 8, but probably 9 up to maybe 12 or 13. Let's call that the beginner, maybe almost intermediate range. But let's just say that you're a beginner at one of those stages and you just picked up the horn. So I think your first note should be, that you should be able to play, should be a G. That's the second line G near the bottom of the staff. I think every human has the natural musculature to be able to play that, be able to play a lot higher. Now, all of you have the ability to play the G right above the staff, or sitting on top of the staff. All of you naturally have the strength to play that, but the reason that you would not be able to do that at the beginning might be because your technique would be off. But natural strength for a normal human, as a beginner, you would have the strength to be able to play the G right above the staff. But I don't want you to fret or worry or get disconcerted about that. That's going to come easily. But for right now, if you're just starting band, here we are. We're almost into August 2022, so band might be starting for you. Maybe you're starting for the first time. Anyway, so if you could play a G in the bottom of the staff, second line, you could play a C, You're doing good. Now, if you can get an E, that's just one note above the C, almost near the top of the staff. I would say you're doing a little bit above average. This is for a pure beginner and someone in the age range. Now, adults are different. For example, an adult male who's 35 years old is going to start, well, he's just naturally going to be a little bit stronger. Bigger lungs, bigger muscles, bigger throat, bigger everything. So you can't compare a beginning 35-year-old male to a 9-year-old girl, for example, that's just starting. The anatomy is just too different. So we're talking about kids right now. Okay, let's move up the ladder. So you're not a beginner, but you've been playing for a couple of years, and you're wondering how well you're doing. So let's say that you're an 8th grader in a middle school, which would put you at the top of the class, or maybe you're an 8th grader in junior high, or let's also call it a 9th grader in junior high. So that means you're still in the lower level school. You're not in the high school, because they do have some 9th graders that are not in junior high that are part of the high school program. We're not talking about that, because when you're a 9th grader in the 9 through 12 program, you tend to be pulled more and pushed. So you might actually do a little bit better. But if you're at the top of your class as an 8th grader in middle school or a 9th grader in junior high, I would say, based on my experience, if you could play a G or an A, you're doing really good. And how do I know that? Because that's kind of where I was at. And as an 8th grader, 9th grader, I was a 9th grader at Hawkins Junior High in Hendersonville, Tennessee. I also went to Knox Doss Junior High, and I was an 8th grader there in band. And so my range kind of hung out right around there. G, maybe A, but not always a usable A in a piece. But I mean, I could make it sound decent for a little bit. That actually carried me through some solos, some concerts. I made, what did they call it back then? All Middle Tennessee Mid-State. I think they call it Mid-State. Tennessee Mid-State Band. It's not All-State, it's Mid-State. So it's the kind of little area right around there, Middle Tennessee area. That's Nashville, and then you drop down to Murfreesboro, and kind of right around. You have to look at the map. I haven't been there for quite some time, but that's what it was. And so in 9th grade, I had a pretty decent G, maybe an A. I would say that A wasn't always there, but it sounded pretty good. Now, in my own private practice, at that time, I remember I could hit the high C, but it wasn't usable, and it sounded kind of like that. So it was maybe MP. Maybe if I killed myself, it was MF. But I was crushing the mouthpiece to my lips and turning red and getting lightheaded. So in my own private practice, I could squeak that out. Maybe a little bit more than a squeak. But it wasn't usable in anything that I could do in band or any solo. So anyway, that's where I was at. And I've noticed along the road that I've taught different people, that seems to be kind of right around the average. If you're in 9th grade, you probably can hit an F or a G or an A, and you're probably doing pretty good. Now, there have been some exceptions. I remember when I taught at a middle school in Federal Way, and the director's name was it Tom Jacobus? Dang it. I can't remember now. It's been so long ago. We're talking like 30 years ago. I think there's a band director, if you're from the Federal Way, Washington area, Seattle area, and you know the name Tom Jacobus. Now, he may not even be alive, because I believe back then, I think he was late 40s or early 50s. So that's 30 years ago. So he may not be around anymore. But I remember there was a kid in either 8th or 9th grade there, like somewhere right around there, who was actually able to get up to D's and E's as a 9th grader, 8th grader, 9th grader, which was very, very unusual. Not typical. So anyway, that's I'm telling you right now, if you're an 8th or 9th grader and you can play a nice, pretty sounding G, full sounding, pretty, in tune, right on top of the staff, maybe an A, you're actually doing pretty good. Maybe average or a little bit above average. You're holding your own. Okay, let's move up to high school. So the high school, there's quite a spectrum in the ranges of high school. Um, Average players, and let's just say slightly advanced. I'm not going to go to your real advanced players like I got to be when I got to start making all state, and really, I'm self-taught when it comes to my high range. We're not going to go into all that, but I did do kind of a quest to find out. I remember this is back before internet. I did a quest to find out who could help me with my high notes, and there really was nobody that I found that specialized in the upper register of the trumpet. So I started messing around on my own and came up with a lot of things that helped me out. So going back to where you might be, let's just say that you're 16 years old and you're about ready to start your junior year this year. Let's just say right now. It's summer of 2022. We're almost in August. You're probably going to be starting band here in a week or two, maybe band camp or some extra band stuff. Yeah, you're basically starting school in 2 weeks and you're 16 years old or almost 16. You're going to be a junior. If you could be hitting a decent high C, B flat, B natural high C, I would say you're doing pretty good. About like that. Pretty sound, centered, in tune, a little bit of kind of big, brassy. And I played those right around MF. So if you could play MF maybe a little bit louder, you're doing pretty good. Maybe slightly above average, okay? So you should feel good about yourself. You should feel like whatever you've been doing has been working. If you've arrived at this point in time, and even if you're watching this video in the future and it's not 2022, let's just say it's 2028, but you're in the same shoes as this person, this figurative person I'm talking about. It's 6 years, this video is 6 years old, but it's the summer and you're 16 years old and you're starting as a junior. It still applies. This is kind of universal. If you can play and have a B flat, B natural, or high C, you should feel pretty good about what you've been doing because what you have been doing has been working for you. Okay? So you should feel pretty proud. That's a good range. You can play quite a lot of repertoire. That would also mean that your endurance is pretty good for a lot of band pieces. Unless you get into an audition-only type of wind ensemble in your high school. Now, a lot of high schools don't have that second band. They'll have a concert band. They have the marching band, the concert band, and maybe a pep band. Some of them may have a jazz band. My school didn't have a jazz band. So I didn't really know anything about jazz, even just the playing of it, until I got into college, which kind of handicapped me a little bit. But I made up for it that first year because I ended up practicing like 6 hours a day. No, that doesn't include rehearsals. I got to the belly of the Clement building, where all the practice rooms were underneath the stage and everything. And I would get there 5:30, 6 o'clock, and for the most part, I'd be practicing there till 11, sometimes midnight, with some breaks. And so that freshman year, I about killed myself, but I made up a lot of lost ground. So back to our discussion on range and age and where you should be. So, okay, I just mentioned that about the audition-only wind ensemble, or let's say symphonic band, something like that. If you have one of those and there's advanced players in that, then we're going to change the range a little bit. So let's just say that you're a senior, you're about ready to start your senior year in high school, and your high school is a bigger high school, and it does have that audition-only wind ensemble band. Or maybe it's not audition, but your band director kind of has to pick you and allow you to be in that band, something like that. And then you do a chair test to see where you are. So that's going to be a more vigorous and higher level band to be in. The caliber of music typically will go up to 4 or 5s and maybe even some 6s, but definitely hanging around grade 4s and 5s. Some pretty tough music, and maybe sprinkling in every now and then some grade 6 music. You will definitely have some high C's to play. Now the thing about it is, you have to have more than a high C range on your trumpet to be able to play those because of the endurance factor. So you might say, oh, I already have the high C, no problem. Well, in some of these pieces, you play constantly, especially if you're doing a march or something like that. But you're playing constantly, and you don't have a lot of break, and then at the end you might have to hold out 8 measures of high Cs or something like that. So you can't just have a high C. You have to have a higher range than that to be able to play those notes. So I would say if it's the summer before your senior year, and you're more of an advanced player, let's just say you're 16 or 17, somewhere right around in there, maybe 18, but somewhere right around there, and you're getting ready to start your senior year of school, and you're kind of an advanced player, and you're going to be going into the top band at your school, you probably should have a strong D or E. So D or E. Yeah, it should sound like that. Now that was a good forte, maybe fortissimo D and E. And so now you're not probably going to see D's and E's in your high school music, because I know I didn't see too much of that. I saw it in the marching band music, I saw it in the pep band music, but in our wind ensemble, I didn't really see those notes. But you need to have that range so you can have the endurance to play the notes you're going to be required to play in a more competitive band like that. And let's talk about, just for briefly, why you need to have higher range, because endurance is a byproduct of range. And this is going to be something that's opposite of what you're going to hear from the people with all the degrees. So, for example, if you're in Middle Tennessee and you're studying with whoever it is that's the trumpet professor at Vanderbilt, I'm confident they're going to tell you the opposite. They're going to tell you just to practice more. Practice more, practice more, practice more, and you'll get your endurance. And don't worry about that range. The range will take care of itself. Does this sound familiar, especially for people that are out of high school, that have tried to study with people that are recommended because they have the DMA or they have the MM after their name? Those guys almost always have it all wrong because they operate on theory. And they're operating on what their DMA professor told them. So these guys operate on theory. They don't really operate on the fact that they can actually step out and play a truly difficult high note solo and make it sound good, because they don't do it. They sit there and count rests in the symphony. If they play in the symphony, they count rest. If you're, let's just take this theoretical example of a trumpet professor, but if I went and double checked, it's true. Whoever that is right now at Vanderbilt University or Belmont, if they're principal trumpet in the National Symphony, I guarantee you they count more rest than they play. You need to be a good rest counter. And what they do play is not going to be anything taxing. A little fanfare this, a little fanfare that, a couple of whole notes, that's it. So when they tell you, don't you worry about the range, little Johnny. It'll take care of itself. You need to practice more if you want good endurance. That's 100% wrong. You need to increase your range over the tessitura of the music that you play to have a big jump in your endurance. And to put it another way, if I was hiring you to come play in my band tonight, and I said we're playing a 4-hour gig, 45 minutes, 15-minute break, 45 minutes, 15-minute break, I want you to come in, but guess what? Here's the kicker. The highest note that you got to play is a low C. Could you do it? Are you going to worry about endurance? Are you going to worry about your face falling off after 4 hours of playing? You are not going to worry about endurance. Why? Because endurance is a byproduct of range, and your range is surely 2 octaves higher than that low C. Are you getting me now? Is it starting to come up here in your brain? Are you waking up? Put away the chatter that you've heard from these people with these advanced degrees that really don't know what they're talking about. If I want you to play in my band tonight and the highest note is a low C, you can do it. And the reason you can do it is not because you're practicing 10 hours a day. The reason you can do it is because your range is so much higher, and endurance is a byproduct of range. That's it. Now, let me hold the hand of these guys that have spent all the time in the library and doing research. You know who I'm talking about. These are the MM guys, the DMA guys. and they haven't spent much of their time playing. In fact, ask some of them to be honest, and they will be the honest ones will tell you if they have any regrets about getting their DMA, it's the fact that they didn't get to play too much. They spent a lot of time researching and writing. The honest ones will tell you that. So they didn't spend a lot of time on this. Now, you do actually have to have some playing time on your horn. Just because you can pop out a high C doesn't mean that you can play forever on any note below that. So I would also like to add this to that equation. I like to be able to at least have a parallel comparison. So for example, if I have a 2-hour rehearsal and I know all the range is only going to go up to high C, but I have a double C, I'm good with that. But I still would like to have him practicing 2 hours a day. You know, that just makes sense, right? So if you have an hour concert for your Christmas concert, you can look at the schedule when you get into band and you're in high school, or let's say you're in college, but you have a Christmas concert coming up. You know what it is, you see it, and that you know that your part that you're going to play, you're going to be in there for probably about 45 minutes. So at the very least, you should be solidly, never missing, practicing 45 minutes to an hour every day. In addition to having your range way above what's required in the pieces that you will play. I promise if you do that, you're going to be good to go. Your chops won't fall off. You won't have any problems. So use that formula. And that most of us pros don't have the luxury of just playing for 45 minutes. Usually it's going to be a couple of hours. And usually if you get wedding gigs, they don't go for a couple hours. They always go close to 4 hours. It just seems that's just been my experience. They start at 10 and go to 2. They start at 9 and go to 1. And you play for 45 minutes and you get off for 15. So there you need to have built up 3 to 4 hours of practice every day. And your range surely needs to be 5 steps higher than whatever you're going to be playing on that gig. So anyway, let's go back to our analogy now in our discussion. This is very important. So it was a sidestep and a little exit road off of the main theme, but I'm confident if you go back and rewind this, you'll know that it's very important that I just talked about this endurance and range, with endurance being a byproduct of range, which is the contrarian view. I'm probably in a very small camp of people, maybe I'm the only one, that really knows that this is the way it works. And your people with your advanced degrees who don't really play too much on this, or they play in the orchestra and don't play hardly at all, they spend their time counting rests and looking at their phone and stuff. No, those people don't know. So let's move on. Now you're into college. And let's just say that you're a sophomore in college, you're 19 years old, maybe you're 20, and you're wondering what range you should have. And let's just say you're coming up around the first part. I'm not going to talk about your third part players. Your third trumpet players and third cornet players in most bands, you can get away with a lot less than what I'm talking about here. In other words, you could be below average and you can play the third part, you're going to get by. I'm just talking about the average first trumpet players for the most part. That starts around the middle school and the high school range. In the elementary, what we first talked about at the beginning, you don't really have so much first, second, and third. You know, you're playing all those band books and things like that. So anyway, you're in college, and you're going to be playing the first trumpet part. Maybe you're going to get a solo. Could be marching band. Pep band has some higher stuff, some rock stuff. And then now you have the jazz band. And usually most college jazz bands are not going to be watered and wimpy. Some of them will have the real McCoy jazz pieces. Like if you have a Buddy Rich jazz piece, in your repertoire, it's probably not going to be watered down. So I'm trying to think of one song that, now I can't think of the title. I'm thinking da 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 da. What song is that? I forgot the name. It just slipped me. But anyway, it's just an example only. When you get into college, you're probably going to play in the real McCoy and not a watered down piece that you probably would have had in high school. They water down a lot of stuff and dilute it, lower the range, and take out the tricky rhythms, just make it easier for high school kids. In college, most of the time, you're going to be getting the real thing. And so now things change. So if you're a 19-year-old sophomore or a 20-year-old sophomore at a typical university or college, and they have at least one jazz band, hopefully they have more, but let's just say they have one jazz band. I'm not talking about a quintet. I'm talking about an 18-piece big band jazz ensemble. Now, you really would like to be able to have E, F, maybe G. G would be sweet if you could. But certainly you got to have the E and the F. So E and F, if you had that, you'd be doing pretty good. There's a lot of pieces that do have the E's and the F's that you're going to be able to make pretty good use of. Some of those charts that you're going to encounter do have the double G. So you could probably take that down if you can't get the double G to come out. But by and large, if you're a 20-year-old, in fact, if you're 20s and you're a sophomore, you may not even be having the lead part. You might have a 22 or 23-year-old senior who's able to do all that. So, but if you had a nice solid E and an F, and you're 19, 20, sophomore in college, and you like playing the first trumpet part, I would say you're doing pretty good. You're doing pretty good. Let's move on now to probably the most advanced player at the college level, and this could be your senior who's 21, 22, 23, or it could be someone that's in your school that's getting their master's in music ed or master's in performance, or their DMA, Doctor of Musical Arts, but they're still there. I mean, they're playing in the jazz band or the top jazz band at the school. So I'm talking about those players. So if you're a top caliber senior trumpet player at a college or university, or you're returning as a graduate student in music or DMA, now you really should have the G, the double G, and double A notes on your horn. You really should have that. I mean, come on. I mean, if you're actually, a senior, and maybe you're getting your band director degree, the music ed, maybe you're getting the music performance. If you're a graduate student, you're getting a master's of music ed or performance. Those levels, if that's going to be your profession, you need to have already figured out this horn and be able to play a double G and a double A on the horn for many reasons. For the jazz band, for rock band, but hey, you're going to be playing some piccolo trumpet stuff. And your piccolo trumpet stuff, you need to be able to have those notes so you can sound better on C, D, and E, which a lot of the Baroque music does have a lot of. When you transpose it to B flat trumpet, of course, it's written one whole step lower. But when it comes out to our note on B flat trumpet, it would be high C's and D's and E's. Very common. With high D. For a B flat trumpet being very, very common, just playing it. So you need to have the G and the A. Double G and double A. And the way I just played it, I would be confident to say that's a good FF. Fortissimo double G and double A. And I don't know if you know this, but I've been talking all this time and I haven't been playing. I actually didn't warm up before playing. And so I'm just pulling these right out of the air. So not like I'm testing out the notes or seeing for intonation. So, but anyway, I'm just letting you know that these notes are probably not going to come out perfect. And then I'm recording on my phone. So I don't have my trusty little Neumann TLM 103 to make everything sound more authentic. Everything's being filtered through the little cheap microphone on my phone. So it's probably not going to come out with the greatest quality, but anyway, you should be able to figure out that it was pretty loud. So that's pretty much it. Now, so we've kind of reached the other end of the spectrum. We started off, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12 beginners, where they should be. And now we've arrived at the other end of the spectrum where you need to have a solid base. I mean, if you're going to be an example to other people, other younger players, people with at a level lower than you, you have to have that good example of doing everything on the horn. But the best example you can have is to have achieved a strong embouchure. And a lot of people put the cart before the horse, and they'll have their technique down, and they're able to play different etudes, and they can do this and that, but they don't have any range. And as far as I'm concerned, for the most part, those people have failed. There are the exceptions. Let's take Chet Baker. I would say he's an exception. His range really sucks, but he was just a kind of a jazz genius, so he made up for it that way. But I guarantee you, you're probably not Chet Baker, and you probably don't have that natural gift that he had, and so you have to have the range on the horn. Okay, you have to have the range on the horn. Let's see what else. So that's pretty much it, folks. Now, if we want to talk about adult beginners and adult players that haven't been in school or comeback players, you need to just take what I said and kind of ratchet it up just a little bit. If you're an older player who hasn't played in a while but you're coming back, you can take these averages and maybe add a note to each one to come out with what you should have. So I've had some comeback players start the course and they can't play a G without passing out. I mean, I'm talking about a high G that sits right on top of the staff. I mean, it sounds almost unbelievable, right? But there are people out there that are 65, 70, 75, 80 that have started my comeback player course, and it's just like, I mean, if you held a gun to their end and told them to play higher than a G, they couldn't do it. So I don't know why that is. It's got to be technique. It's got to be you on the wrong equipment. Maybe they have health problems. So there's some of these things that we just talked about get skewed when it comes to comeback players. So most of the comeback players I've had tend to have been very weak when they come back. Their range tends to be very, very weak. Weaker than what is typical for the levels we just talked about. So weaker than a ninth grader, for example, in school. And I don't know exactly all the reasons behind that, but health might be one. Maybe their health has deteriorated. They didn't touch their horn for so many years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years. They're playing on crappy equipment, so mouthpiece too big. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed this discussion, and I feel that there's a lot of value in here. If you felt that you gained some value out of this discussion, and you can kind of see where you fit in, maybe this motivated you a little bit. Maybe you're just a little bit under some of these averages, and you'd like, you know what, Kurt kind of prodded me a little bit. I think, okay, I'm a top high school player, senior, and I don't quite have that high CD. I'm going to work on it. I'm going to really try to get it up there. I hope that's what happens, that this kind of motivated you a little bit. I'd like for you to go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. You've heard a million times that supposedly it helps YouTube push it to other people. They push it to other people, and of course I made this video for free. I want YouTube to push it to other people so they will see it, and then of course you'll see my website down in the link below, trumpetsizzle.com. And I would want you to go there and see if there's something in there that you think might actually help you. I'm quite confident I have something on my website that would help you, whether it's just lessons with me, whether it's just me reviewing some of your videos, I can do that, or whether you want to get involved in the quite a myriad of courses that I already have. And most of these courses are very proven by hundreds and hundreds of other people that have come before you. So also, what we just talked about should have generated an interesting dialogue with people watching it. So I'd be interested to hear your take on it. I like neutral to positive comments. If you're a troll and providing a lot of hatred and vitriol, I'll probably delete you. But if you want to leave a comment and you disagree slightly, or you disagree and you want to kind of frame it in something realistic and just polite, I'll leave your comment on. On the other hand, if you agree and you think what I said rings true, then go ahead and leave that. So leave a comment below about what you just heard in this video. Let's see what else. And then, yeah, there's a couple little buttons there. If you want to help support this channel and this video, you can add a little cha-ching. That helps go a long way for someone who tends to work most of the time for free. If you look at all the videos, I got over 2,000. They were all done for free, folks. So yeah, it's like kind of like the starving trumpet player and starving artist syndrome here. So, you know, if you're a software engineer or a lawyer or an accountant, you're watching this and, you know, you want to chip in a little bit, I will accept it. That will be appreciated. So anyway, I'm going to put some other videos that you may like, might be interested in. You'll see them pop up on the screen here in a bit. And then if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. One benefit is I've been making these posts too, not a video. There's a community section where I can make a post, an announcement. You may want to see some of those. So if you subscribe, you'll get notification when I make a post or put something I think is important. And of course, you'll get the heads up for new videos that I'm going to do. So Kurt Thompson, trumpet player. The site is trumpetsizzle.com. Trumpetsizzle.com. If you're in a generous mood and you want to help save music and you want to contribute to our society, I do run a nonprofit called Trumpet Champions. The website is trumpetchampions.org. Trumpet Champions with an S.org. And you can go there and make a donation and contribute to a good cause to help music. We're trying to get a band put together to not only help the general public, but also go into some underserved areas and turn on people who are only used to listening to hip hop and rap and just some other junk music, and let them hear what real music sounds like live. So that's part of our mission for trumpetchampions.org. But if you're in the generous mood and you want to help out, that would be also appreciated. All right, it's summer of 2022, and today, it is supposed to be a hot one. What are we? It's Wednesday, the 20th, July 20th, 2022, and they're calling for 105 degrees. We've had a heat wave this summer. It's been hot, so I hope that you are enjoying your summer. Or if you're watching this during the winter, I hope you're enjoying building your snowman. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye for now.